Australia is helping the Philippines bounce back from setbacks from the pandemic and the onslaught of typhoons. The Australian government and the Global Financial Group are investing in a fund to empower women in the business sector. The initiative aims to help women-led and owned small and medium-sized enterprises get back on their feet. To tell us more about this humanitarian effort, we have with us tonight the Australian Ambassador to the Philippines, His Excellency Stephen Robinson, and Cap Ventures board member Benilda Ronquillo-Camba. Thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word. Ambassador Robinson, let me start off with you. How is women's economic empowerment critical to economic growth, especially in this time of the pandemic?
Well, thanks, Rico, and thanks for having me on this evening. It's lovely to be with you. You know, for Australia, we've been committed to gender equality and women's empowerment for a long, long time, and this is something that's not new to the Philippines. But during crises, whether it be natural disasters or other difficulties, women and girls get impacted disproportionately harder than men. And as a consequence, we were thinking of ways in which we can stimulate women to get back into the workforce and get back into business that would actually help the economy at the same time. So we came up with this particular program. We've had a program called Investing in Women now for a number of years. But we thought if we could find ways in which we could generate opportunities for women to get back into business, that would further stimulate the economy. So we came up with responsive interventions supporting entrepreneurs.
And this initiative, Ambassador Robinson, will definitely give a boost to Filipino women SMEs and basically close the gap between women's and men's access to capital as the Philippine economy recovers from one of its worst downturns in history due to this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And we're very fortunate that we've got partners like the Macquarie Group that donated 1.25 million Australian dollars, that's 43 million pesos, to this particular enterprise. And then we linked up with partners such as the Foundation for Sustainable Society Incorporated and Cap Ventures. And hopefully what's this going to see is us over the next 2 years invest significantly in women's enterprises that will see women into the workforce in a big way.
Ambassador, we have with us as well Ms. Camba, who is from Cap Ventures, and they are the local investing partner. So Ms. Camba, tell us, are there any specific industries or sectors that this funding program for women is targeting?
Hi, good evening, Rico. Actually, Cap Ventures is actually sector agnostic, so it will qualify eligible enterprises from all sectors. But we are keen on investing in SMEs that are impactful and inclusive, those with social or environmental and business outcomes, inclusive, those that create equal opportunities for small entrepreneurs as well. So, and as we always say, we use gender lens investing as a strategy in assessing the businesses that we work with.
So Ms. Camba, with so many of our kababayans now unemployed, how many jobs will this create down the supply chain?
Actually, in terms of job creation, the fund targets to generate a total of stable direct jobs of 200 for the Macquarie Investing in Women Rise Fund, but we're targeting an aggregate amount of 500 jobs coming from the suppliers from the supply chain or within the supply chain.
And Ambassador, the Australian government has been assisting the Philippines during these turbulent times for the people and for the economy, allowing women-owned and women-led businesses in the country to bounce back with this new fund, but also with the killer typhoons that have impacted the country.
Yes, that's right, Rico. Well, Australia's always stood with the Philippines during times of adversity. And since about 2006, we've assisted the Philippines with about 21 different disaster or conflict responses. And for Typhoon Raleigh and Typhoon Ulysses, this was no different. And some years ago, we entered into agreements with the Philippines government and the Philippine Red Cross to pre-position supplies here in the Philippines that we could release very, very quickly after there was a disastrous incident. And so in the case of Typhoon Rolly, our humanitarian team, which does a brilliant job in the embassy, got together and worked out what we could release. So we released about 7 million pesos worth of shelter kits and hygiene kits for women just in the days after Typhoon Rolly. And then I went down to Albay province with the UN resident coordinator last weekend or the weekend before to look at the impact of Typhoon Rolly. And then with Typhoon Ulysses coming on board, the Australian government has increased its commitment to assist the UN in its appeal. So Australia is committing now about $1 million all up, which is about 35 million pesos that goes to immediate assistance to those most in need.
The Australian government has indeed been very generous in terms of helping the Philippines during its time of need. But on the flip side, you've been now the ambassador to the Philippines for the past 2 years. Despite what has been happening in the global economy in Australia and in the Philippines due to this COVID-19 pandemic, has there been interest from Australian companies and investors to still look at the Philippines as a key investment destination?
Yes, absolutely, Rico. It's one of the interesting things about this pandemic and the business response. We've got about 300 Australian companies operating here in the Philippines that employ about 44,000 people. And what those companies have managed to do is to rebound and work from home, so they haven't been unduly affected. But at the same time, they've been looking at what the Philippine government has done and is seeking to do to bounce out of the recession. So digitalization, e-commerce, upskilling and reskilling of workers, and focus on infrastructure projects really creates enormous opportunities. And Australia, of course, is good at innovation. And when it comes to digitalization, we're right out there in terms of being a leader in terms of e-commerce and digitalization for government. So we've got a lot to offer. So Australian companies are really interested in getting into the Philippine market.
That is wonderful news. Closer business relations between Australia and the Philippines today and going forward. Thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word, His Excellency Ambassador Stephen Robinson and Benilda-Camba from Invest Cap Ventures.